It is a new year, but nothing changes around here in terms of what we do. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I do with everyone else, and get you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Sean, obviously. My online coach, and I'm an online coach and a PT, so obviously online at the moment because of everything going on. But ever since the I think it was the start of the second lockdown, and kind of around the end of the beginning of the second lockdown, end of kind of when everything went down again, I launched this business at the end of October, kind of middle to end of October of last year, 2020. And yeah, it has been absolutely amazing. I'm only qualified since the end of January in 2020 as well. So around this time last year. So to qualify in a job that I'd never done before, didn't know a huge amount about, and then be chucked into a lockdown literally 10 days after I started in the gym was pretty interesting. But I've been lucky enough to know a handful of people in the industry a lot longer than I am, who have been amazing. I helped me on, like my own coach, Mihal, of FM Fitness Nutrition, has been absolutely amazing. I've made some great friends who've helped me along. So yeah, it's been good. I spent 7 years working in bars before this. So it's been a nice change, seeing the sun rise instead of seeing the sunrise and going to bed, seeing the sunrise and getting up. Like it's a nice change.
So look, you mentioned Michal. Michal Penson was on the podcast as a member on the gymadvisors.e. A good lad to be holding your hand to come into the industry. So I'm sure he's done a lot for you in the past few months.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. He's actually married to my cousin now, the wonderful Fiona. So that's how we originally met. About 3 years ago now, I think it was January 2018, Michal and I started working together as a client coach thing. And I saw great results under him the first kind of 7 or 8 months we worked together. And then I moved down to Limerick. And just starting in a new job, way more hours, way more responsibilities. So like training just dropped off the map altogether for about a year. And then I started my course about a year later, give or take, after I moved to Limerick. And it was just the best decision I ever made. And I remember talking to Michal before I signed up with, I did my course with a group called Image Fitness, and Michal was the same. And I remember talking to him about it beforehand, and just, it was brilliant to have his insight into, what was good about the course, what was bad about the course. I went in being able to talk to him, and there was another fella who I was working with in the bar at the time who had done the course with them as well. And being able to have that kind of insight into knowing what the course was going to be about, what I was going to learn and be able to take away from the course, and what I was going to need to do on my own outside of the course, was very good to know from the get-go, because I was able to go in and take exactly what I needed and be able to come away and know exactly what I was going to need to work on in terms of setting up systems for the business, how to do things like online check-ins and video check-ins and stuff like that. Like, there's not a huge amount of online stuff in those courses. And obviously no one knew what was coming, so there wasn't really much of an emphasis on it. But if you'd said to me when I was doing that course that I would have been an online coach, I'd have laughed. Like, it would have never been something I would have kind of prioritized. Whereas now, having done it and seen the results I can get with people and how I can help people and how people respond to it, it's definitely going to be my thing moving forward. Rather than one-to-one PT. One-to-one PT is something I still want to do, because I think it's the best way to kind of hone your craft as a PT and a coach. But as far as being an online coach and what I want to do going forward, I want to be able to provide the best kind of content and almost education for my clients and people who follow me on social medias and things like that as I can possibly do. And I think focusing at being an online coach rather than a one-to-one PT gives you more kind of scope to be able to do that with your clients. Like, whereas with one-to-one PT, you're kind of only seeing them maybe an hour or two a week. You give them their plan, their nutrition, whatever. They might have their check-ins or whatever the case may be. With online coach, because you're not one-to-one with them, you nearly kind of have to do that little bit more to educate them, I kind of find. Or feel like you need to provide that little bit of extra because you're not actually there with them when they're training. And I quite like that. I quite like how in depth we can go, and be that on, like an email list, podcasts, Instagram lives, whatever the case may be. I think there's just way more scope to be able to get your message across and how you want to do things. And I'm very much the type of guy, I didn't get into this industry. I've never gotten into any industry in order to, make a quick buck. Like, I didn't get into bartending to become rich quickly. I got into bartending for fun. I became a PT because I wanted to help people. So if I have 10 people who are coming away from whatever kind of media I'm putting out there, whatever content I'm putting out there, if 10 people come away from that having been able to take something away from that, I'm happy, rather than having 100,000 followers but I'm pushing Herbalife products or something like that. That's not what I'm about at all.
There's a very easy tangent that I could take here that would end up in myself and yourself just ranting at each other for the next half an hour, I'm sure, Sean. So you've said a lot. You've said a lot in there that I really want to kind of come back to and all that sort of stuff. Particularly the part about yourself when you mentioned Mihal, and I know yourself. You do surround yourself with kind of with people who try and raise you up and try to improve you and all that sort of stuff. So I do want to come back to that. But let's go back to the start. You've talked about how you got into the industry. Even before that, when you were working in pubs and stuff, were you a sporty person, or did the love of kind of exercise and PT and all that sort of stuff come literally just before you got qualified and when you kind of started to make a change?
It's kind of funny. Like, I was very sporty when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. Like, I grew up in Meath in the country, and the only things to really do was, play football, play hurling, play soccer, whatever. So I would have played football, hurling, soccer when I was a kid the whole way through till when I was 18, like. But I got a couple of bad injuries. I blew my knee out when I was 15 or 16, and I was on the sidelines for give or take a year. And then I came back from that, and then I slipped a disc in my back, and that was kind of an on and off thing for the next 2 or 3 years. And then when I went to college in Dublin, and when I dropped out of college and started working at bars, I was working at bars in Dublin as well. I just kind of didn't have the time to get back, and obviously with bar work you're working in the night, so you can't make training and stuff like that, so it just all kind of fell off. And there was 2 or 3 years there where I wasn't really doing anything. Like, I wasn't training in any way, I never had any idea about nutrition. I just kind of, whatever was given to you, that's what you ate. And then I'd always been hugely fascinated by the mindset of kind of like top athletes, and I used to read a lot of like autobiographies. And around the time I was moving to Limerick was around the time I was thinking of getting out of the bar industry, and I really wanted to do strength and conditioning coaching. So when I did eventually make that decision to get out of the bar industry, give or take a year later, I didn't want to wait around until college the next year to go do a strength and conditioning course, because I wanted out of the bar industry. So I was kind of looking around for things I could do, and there was the image fitness course, and then they had like a kind of add-on, I think it was a 2-weekend or 3-weekend thing. A few months after you finish your course, you could do it to become a qualified strength and conditioning coach. So I was like, boom, right up my alley. So I started my PT course with that in mind. This is the stepping stone to becoming a strength and conditioning coach. And our tutor on the very first day, we sat down, got our books, all that sort of stuff, and he was like, go to the back of your copy there and just write down why you're here, what you want to achieve, and there was something else. I can't remember what the other one was. But the why I was here was I want to become a strength and conditioning coach, and then it was like, what do you want to achieve? I want to just learn as much as I possibly can in order to get me to where I eventually want to go. And he was like, write that down, and at the end of the course we'll go back to that and just see how much that's changed. And the course is only 4 months long, so like in my head I was kind of like, that's not going to change that much. Like, it's only 4 months, and I'm going to be here 3 years. Literally get to the end of the course, I'd absolutely zero interest in strength and conditioning. Well, like I'd still do it, but it's not my main goal now. And I literally gotten to the point where I just wanted to PT people. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to work one-on-one with people for as long as I possibly could. That was my only goal. And I remember having a chat with him afterwards, and I was laughing. I was like, it was crazy how, not only how much it changed, but how quickly it changed. Like, we used to go up to the gym. We were doing it in a hotel in Galway, and there was a gym as part of the hotel. So we'd go up there and do all our like practical stuff. And it was amazing how quickly we went from, we'd be like PTing each other, and literally, I think we were doing like 1 rep max tests, and I was doing it with one of the girls who was there on, I think, the leg extension or leg curl machine or something. And we were properly PTing her, and I remember thinking to myself, like, holy crap, this is amazing. I can't wait to do this. And I was just like flicking a switch. It was just strength and conditioning was gone. PT and what has now become online coaching was the only way to go.
Very cool. So I think we've kind of dug down in there into where it all started, and I'm really, in our few chats that we've had before on the phone and whatever else, you've come across as someone who has a philosophy of keeping things simple for people to be able to achieve. So it's not this, as you say, not selling them supplements, it's not selling them bollocks, it's giving them the information, giving them the ability to kind of change their lives. Is that true? And if so, like, and what is your, if someone was to come to you and they would ask you, what's your fitness philosophy, how are you going to help me make a change in my life, what would you say to them?
Keep it simple. Like, that is literally how I live my life. So someone asked me a similar question a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, you know, how do you design your kind of fitness plans and stuff? And I was like, I kind of take the same idea to it that I had when I used to make cocktails and work, when we'd be like creating a menu or something like that.
Before you go on, I'm really looking forward to this analogy. I really am.
See, I took this from a thing Gordon Ramsay had said about food, and it was like, there should never be anything on the plate that doesn't add to the plate. And I took that to the cocktails of, there should never be anything inside the glass or around the glass that shouldn't be there. So basically, if you don't need an ingredient, or you don't need a garnish or something, or you're just doing something purely for show, it doesn't need to be there, so why is it there? And I've taken that to fitness and coaching and things like that. It's, if I don't need to make this unbelievably complicated for you, then why would I? Like, you might not need to know exactly why, like to the absolute letter, why we're doing a certain thing. I'll give you a brief overview, and if we need to go into it in more detail, we'll go into it in more detail when we can. But I'm not going to bombard you with, you know, reps and reserves and RPEs and, you know, breaking down every single macro and micronutrient that there is in the world just to make it look like I'm really smart. I don't care what other people, you know, think of me in that sense. If I can get it across to my client what they need to do as simply as I can, and they can follow that and understand why they need to do that in its simplest form, I'm happy. There's no need to, like, I don't see the need to overcomplicate things just to make yourself look smart. Like, I have that confidence in myself, in what I do, that I can keep it simple. I don't need to go overcomplicating things for the sake of overcomplicating things.
And like, that relates back to something that we talked about with Kelly Casey a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, with Christmas and all that, on Christmas break and all that, where it was, maybe it's something that comes with age, maybe it's something that you kind of develop depending on your experiences, where you make an effort to develop the confidence in yourself, where it doesn't matter, the outside stuff doesn't really matter, and just getting the job done is what matters, and not being too overwhelmed by, as you say, social media or how many followers you have or whatever. It's more about, I can help this person who's right in front of me, and the best way to do that is A, B, C, and make it, and keep it simple as possible. Cool. So speaking of social media, one of your first posts on social media was about your own body and how you kind of had worked on it with a PT. You got amazing results, and then you moved somewhere and it kind of unraveled. And if that isn't my exact same story, if we're two men here with black hair and beards and we have the same story, I'm not sure we're not the same person, to be honest with you, Sean. From that post, I was looking at it recently, and a couple of kind of questions occurred to me. But first of all, can you kind of, how did that unravel for you once you left the PT, and kind of we'll go on from there.
So I'd been working with Mihal, as I said, in January 2018, and I think it was in 3 months I'd lost 1.5 stone or something like that. Like, I had really good results really quickly because I hadn't trained in ages. So like, my body was just like, whoa, the hell is going on here? Like, not a fan. And then that was kind of like the first phase, and then second phase was the second 3 months where we kind of ramped it up a good bit, and again kept seeing really, really good results. And then the same with kind of the next phase, which ended up getting cut short because I moved to Limerick. And my whole thing when I moved to Limerick was I'll find a gym and we'll keep this going. Perfect. But I started in a job as a manager during the day, and then I left that job pretty quickly and went to the cocktail bar that I ended up in for about a year, and that was the start of November. And then I did Christmas in there and got promoted. So like November and Christmas in there was just mental. Like the place had, when I started working there, the place had 3 bars. By the time Stevens's Day rolled around, the place had 6 bars. We opened 3 bars in the space of 3 weeks, and I was brought in to run one of those bars. And so, like, it's funny, like, we opened this bar as it was going to be the new kind of, like, main place you'd walk in. As customers were walking in the first day, we were still putting glasses on the shelves. Like, myself and one of the other fellas were sprinting in going, I swear to God, if anyone orders a pint of Guinness, we don't have Guinness glasses down here. But it was catastrophic. Like, that place was just, it was a mile a minute, 100 miles an hour every single day. And at the start of the new year, I got promoted then. I was a supervisor in that place, and we had a 7th bar. So we had 50, 60 staff at any given time, like any given night. We had taken in just astronomical money. It was silly money we were taking in. And I was working 70, 80 hours a week. So fitness was the furthest thing from my mind. And it got then to a point about 6 or 7 months later where I was just so burnt out, and there was so many things in my life that were deteriorating because of the job. And I was just, I had that moment, which I've had before, of just like, if it isn't bringing you happiness, or if it isn't bringing you joy, or if you're not in a position where you can progress to somewhere where you want to be, why are you doing it? Like, I wasn't doing this job for anyone other than myself. And I kind of had that look at myself, and I was like, it's making you so unhappy. And every day you go into work, like every step I used to take, my stress levels would just go up and up and up and up, to the point where I used to walk into work with big headphones, and these big headphones on, a jacket wrapped around me, paddy cap on, and a face like absolute thunder. Like, people wouldn't speak to me until I got in behind the bar, because that's when I had to smile because there was customers. Like, I'd walk in and people would just turn the other way, like. And I kind of had that look at myself in the mirror, and I was just like, yeah, this can't go on. Like, it's not feasible, can't go on. And made the leap, quite literally. Thought about it for about 3 days. Rang Mihal, had a chat with him, and booked my place in Image Fitness that day. And I remember sitting down then on the first day of December, I was like, what the hell have I just done? This better work out, otherwise it's $2,000 just down the hole. Yeah, it was a weird time in my life.
Yeah, and look, we all have them, and I think it's really, that story is different to the stories you often hear, in that the tipping point for you wasn't putting on a pair of trousers. It wasn't a weight related thing. It wasn't like that. It was stress levels from everyday life, not even everyday life, like a very, very busy life. And the idea that the trigger point that people talk about is often to do with weight, it's often to do with whatever else, whereas the important one to notice and to act upon is when it's affecting your mental health. And that's kind of...
I knew I was overweight, and I still am. Like, I still have a good bit of weight I need to shift, and it's good crack trying to lose that weight. But I knew I was overweight at the time, but just wasn't doing anything about it. And like, because of how busy we were and how tired I was on my days off, like I'd work 5-6 days a week, and the 7th day I'd be so tired I'd sleep in until, and because my body clock was so screwed up, I'd sleep in until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I wouldn't go to bed until 3 or 4 o'clock that night. Like, I was sitting there looking at myself, I'm like, this is such an unhealthy lifestyle. And then I was looking back at what I'd done with Mihal the year or 2 years previously, and I was like, we made so much progress, and now it's just all gone again. And I kind of had that thing in my head, and I was just like, then I was kind of down on myself about that for a while, and then again had that crystallizing moment of, if I did it once, I can do it again. And if I can put myself in a position where I know what to do and I know how to do it, and I can help other people do it, why not go do that instead? Yeah, and I'm lucky. It was a risk at the time that has paid off massively.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And whatever else about whatever we chat about, that's a really important thing to note. That looking back on where you've come from is always important to do, and that's class to hear you say that. But you mentioned about you mentioned where you are now in terms of your own body composition. Do you think the industry overemphasizes the physical, and is that coming from kind of social media and all that sort of stuff?
I don't know if I'd say the industry, because there's so many brilliant people out there who are in this industry who aren't maybe, the go-tos on social media because of the fact that they don't have this ripped physique or anything like that. I don't think it's so much the industry so much as the actual population, like just Gen Pop on social media, who put these people on that almost pedestal in a way, just because of the bodies that they have. And that's where, in my eyes, it's a little bit dangerous, because that's where, you get brands coming into those people who have, 50, 60, 70, 100,000 followers on Instagram or whatever it is. And they'll go, we'll pay you X amount to say you use our product. They've never even heard of that product. Like, some of these Instagram influencers, and they'd have those, like those ab vibrating things.
Yeah.
You get a six pack, and it's like, if you seriously believe that they use that to get a six pack, you shouldn't be trusted with money. Like, it's no. So I wouldn't say the industry so much, because there's some absolutely phenomenal people out there who are just pumping out good content time on time, and there is a couple worldwide who have massive followings who are putting out what I would consider to be the right style of content. But the majority of people I see are just those, Instagram influencers with their hit workouts that aren't hit workouts. They're just really, really, really bad circuits. Yeah, I let it bother me a lot more at the start than I should have, until again I had that kind of realization of, I can control what I can control. If other people want to go to, X's Instagram account because they've got a shredded six pack and they look massive and they've 150,000 Instagram followers, and they're saying that the reason they got all of this was because of Herbalife supplements, good on you. If I've got 50 Instagram followers and they're following me for, again, what I would consider to be the right style of content, and they're taking that away that they can make sustainable life changes, then I'm happy at it. Because that, to me, that's what it's all about. It's all about sustainability. And look, fair play to those people out there who have, hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers and are absolutely shredded, because for whatever products they're pushing, like, I know full well that it takes a huge amount of dedication to get to that point, and it takes a huge amount of training to get to that point. So, fair play on that part. The part I don't agree with is the essentially just selling yourself to sell these crap products just because it's a quick buck. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right. I think it's taking advantage of vulnerable people, and it is never, ever something I will ever get on board with. Like, I can hand on heart say, if you ever see me promoting something, it is something I 100% believe in or use myself. I'd never, ever promote something that I don't believe in for the sake of getting a quick buck. Like, I just don't think it's morally right.
Yeah, and I think you've summed it up very well there. I think your individual point of view and the take you have on it, that you can control what you can control, is absolutely 100% the way any personal trainer should kind of approach it, because you're the one who's responsible for your content, you're the one responsible for your clients. My worry is, you mentioned there's a lot of people, there's a few people out there who have massive followings and they're putting out the right content, things like that. My worry is if they get overwhelmed, and in 10 years' time, the people who are putting out the shite content have won, and they're the ones who like that. And that's the way we're trending. That is because because the way social media is, you're going to get those people with the massive followings. They're going to keep selling. They're going to keep telling people that they use the belly trainer, the waist trainer, or whatever other shite that they have, and people are going to keep buying them, and we're just going to end up even further down this road in a worse situation with an unhealthier population and unable to kind of climb our way back out of it. And it's just, that's my worry, that in 10 years' time, that's what's going to happen.
That is definitely a worry. But, like, I think a lot of people, it kind of changes, or kind of goes almost like down a conveyor belt. People will start with those Instagram influencers and do those, belly ab fucking vibrator machine things. And then they will realize it's not sustainable. It's the same with stuff like keto diets and paleo diets and all this sort of stuff. Like those 90-day diet challenges that a lot of these influencers will put up as well. Eat this for 90 days and you'll look like this. And then they do it, they lose a lot of weight, they think they're great, and in 3 months' time they've put all that weight and then some back on because it's not sustainable. This is my whole thing. It's basically the only thing I'll ever preach. If it's not sustainable, you can't do it. It's literally what sustainability is. So I think the way it's kind of like this now, because I've seen this with both myself and a lot of coaches that I talk to and have chats with on a fairly regular basis, of what seems to happen is people will do these things for 30, 60, 90 days, realize it's not sustainable, or get to the point where they've done that, they've put the weight back on, and then they'll come to almost like a legitimate coach, for want of a better phrase, because I don't want to take massive cracks at anyone, but they'll come to someone who preaches more of sustainability than, do this ab thing for 30 minutes each day and it'll be A-okay. And that's where you get people like Jordan Side in America has, I think, like 800,000 or 900,000 Instagram followers, but the dude's content is absolutely nailed on. And he makes no apologies for not putting out things that people, in a way, almost expect from someone with that amount of Instagram followers. But I think people are slowly coming, and it's probably more so that people have started this and they're coming up to the sustainability, but that there's going to be more people going to the back of that line. And that's nearly the way it's going to be, is that you're just going to always have people starting at that level with, the ab blast 30 minutes 6 times a week and you're going to be shredded. Then they come up, realize that doesn't actually work in any way, shape or form, and then they come to people like us and they're like, I tried all these things, none of them worked. And I'm like, well, sure, of course they didn't work. Like, never worked. If you do any looking into any study about any of these diets and these plans and all this, there's like a 90% fail rate. It's not sustainable. And that's where our job is to show them what is sustainable and how it works and why it works. And I think that's the other big thing, is that a lot of people will do these things kind of mindlessly and not have any idea of why what they're doing works, or like how it works. And I think that's our job as coaches, is to make them understand that if you want to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. End of story. It's the only way to lose weight, and this is why. And this is how we do it healthily. And this is why you need X amount of protein, so you need X amount of carbs, X amount of fats, and stuff like that, where we need to essentially just teach our clients about what they need to know in order to sustain what it is they do. Because at the end of the day, no client is ever going to be with you for life. Like, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, they're eventually going to leave. And my thing is that if you leave, even if you leave me after, the initial 3 months we work together, I want you to be able to walk away with a good understanding of what you need to do in order to, at the very least, sustain what it is, where it is you're at, and hopefully have the knowledge to be able to continue on in what you want to do.
I think you've turned a positive, possibly negative question for myself into a very positive finish, so I appreciate that, John. Thanks very much. And look, you talked about the coach's job. Our job at the Gym Advisors is to amplify voices like yourself who are doing incredible work, and hopefully eventually get to the point where some people at least skip that initial waste of money that they're So look, let's finish on a bit of positivity, or at least start with this bit of positivity. What's the favorite part of your job?
Seeing people have that kind of eureka moment of I can do a lot of the things I want to do and still be able to reach my goals. You know, whether that be having a few drinks on a Saturday night, whether that be having the odd takeaway on a Friday or Saturday night, whatever it is. But having people who come to me with like these connotations of, in order to lose weight or reach whatever physique goal you want to reach, you need to be super, super, super restrictive, and me kind of sitting them down and going, you don't need that at all. You really don't. We need to have kind of an acceptance of, yeah, we can have those few drinks on a Saturday night, but we might not get there in 12 weeks' time. We might get there in 16 weeks' time. And being able to have that see that kind of light bulb go off in people's heads of, I can still do the majority of things that I wanted to do, just in a little bit more moderation. And I'm like, yeah. And then we get to where we get to. It's easy. I love that. I love that part of it.
Good, I like it. Let's change it then again. What's your least favourite part of the job? Or it could be the industry, it could be anything, but...
Least favourite part of the industry is those Instagram influencers. I absolutely hate that. Least favourite part of the job? Joe it probably is editing my own podcast and videos, because I just hate listening to myself speak.
yeah.
Hate it. I do be listening back to podcasts and editing them, and just like, it'll get to a part where I'll talk for a while and I'm just like, oh God, just shut up. Just shut up.
Speaking of that, I have it down here on the notes to mention it towards the end, but it's a podcast with yourself and Micheál Penson. I've listened to it myself. It's a really good listen, lads. If you want to go and check it out, it's the Agents of Health podcast.
Yes, the Agents of Health podcast. Thanks so much.
No, I wouldn't. I generally, if I didn't enjoy it, I would just skip over that. But I've generally enjoyed it. It's added to the rotation. I really, really enjoy it. Thanks very much, man.
Yeah, we'll be relaunching that now on Friday. This coming Friday now, myself and Paddy Kelly of PDK Fitness had a good long chat yesterday. But we're going to end up having to split that into 2, possibly 3 parts, because of how long that interview ended up going. But yeah, so we will be back in your ears on Friday, God willing.
Cool. So talking about your kind of circle of friends and coaches that you surround yourself with, who inspires you? And it can be someone on social media, it can be other coaches in the industry, it can be people in your daily life. Who kind of gives you that drive to do what you do?
Micheál is massively up there. To be able to see what that dude came from, like what he left behind in order to do this, is a massive inspiration to me. Like, he left behind a really, really good engineering job with he was fine in that job he was in, financially pretty much set for the rest of his life, and to walk away from that and do coaching and do what he's doing now took some massive balls on his part. Like, that's not an easy decision for anyone to make. So yeah, and then just the quality of coach he is. As far as kind of newer guys that I've met, like Paddy to me is a big inspiration, because Paddy lost 59 kilos from his heaviest, which is just insane. And he's just such a genuine person, such a genuine guy, and he's a fantastic coach. His eagerness and willingness to just constantly be learning has just rubbed off on me. So like, anytime I'm kind of feeling a little bit down about myself or anything like that, and I have a chat with Paddy, I'm just straight back on the wagon. Pretty much everyone in that coaches group, like there's Barry of Barry's Buds, Owen from Owen's Elite, Steve, coached by Steve, Dan of coached by Dan, Carl of Dramatic Carl, Aina of Maxer. Like, there's just Ross from Progression Health. There is just a huge amount of really genuine good guys in that group who I've been lucky enough to be able to learn off over the last kind of 2 to 3 months, in regard to not only kind of how to approach my business, but the actual business side of things as well. And the accountability that's been in that group has been amazing. Like, it kind of gave me a wake-up call in that way as well, of if I say I'm going to do something, the exact same way I do with my training for Micheál, where at the end of the week I have Micheál going, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Every Wednesday when we hop on those calls, if you say that you're going to reach out to 10 people, 10 new possible clients, and you come back and say you only reached out to 5, you've literally got 15, 16 guys looking at you going, well, why didn't you do the other 5? And yeah, they're genuine good people who there's never been any sort of, that Instagram influencer type thing. It's just put out good content, put out as much of it as you possibly can for free, let as many people see it as you can, and if you can help even one person, that's one more person you've helped than you wouldn't have if you hadn't put that content out. And yeah, those guys have made me feel a lot more comfortable, I suppose, in a way, from when you kind of look at social media at the very beginning and you see all these, shredded, ripped people, and you're just like, every photo they put up is just of themselves, and I'm like, I really, really don't want to go down that route. That's not where I want to be. And then having been kind of immersed with those fellas and that support system, yeah, it's been brilliant. Those are the types of lads who I'm kind of like pushing my game to be at. So yeah, good.
It sounds like the industry and with the coaches that are coming up with people like that, it's in good hands. So I'm delighted to hear that. So that's a really cool answer. I'm going to consider you guys the class of '92 from now on. So you better.
I'll have to say that when it's like that.
You better deliver. No, but that's class. And look, finish up with one last question. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received? Jesus. Honestly, follow your gut. Purely because it's worked out for me so well in certain situations. Not so well in others. But I took the plunge to drop out of journalism when it wasn't making me happy. Made some friends for life in bartending. I talked about this in an email the other day. There's fellas I've met in bartending who I've never met before, had I not done it, who I know are going to be standing beside me at my wedding. And then following my gut to take the leap out of the bar industry, which was an industry where I had kind of built up a bit of a name for myself, was good at what I did, and could walk into a lot of jobs pretty handily. To go into an industry I'd never been in, knew 2 people in, and that has also just paid off terrifically. So yeah, I'd say the best piece of advice I ever got is probably follow your gut. Good,
and I like that, and I like the start of it where it's like, follow your gut, but know when to follow your gut.
Yeah, know when to do it. Don't do it for the sake of it. Like, if follow your gut says follow a woman, that's both gone well and not so well for me in the past.
Fair point, and that is the perfect place to finish it, Sean. I really appreciate your time. We've already talked about your podcast. You are the Agents of Health, yourself and Micheál Penston. You mentioned Micheál as well. Go back and listen to our episode with Micheál. He talks about that transition from engineer to personal trainer and coach. It's a really interesting listen. Sean, you're also an affiliate for our non-YouTube listeners. We have a display up here behind us for this Gym Advisor store. People can get a 10% discount by using the discount code SR10, and that is your code. And given what you've said earlier on, it's not just for a quick buck, because
exactly.
Brilliant.
I only put my name behind things I actually believe in, and I will always do that.
Appreciate that, Sean. I really do. Brilliant to have you on board the site as well as the affiliate program as well. So you can also find Sean on the gymadvice.ie/SR Fitness. But Sean, we talked about social media so much, you're also on it. If you want to point people in that direction.
Yeah, if you want to find me on Instagram, folks, it's SR Fitness. I think it's at Sean Ryan PT. So if you want to find me on Instagram, hop over there. The links to all my other stuff is on that page. Hit me a follow or send me a DM and we can have a chat if you want to have a chat.
Brilliant, Sean. Brilliant. And I would recommend anyone who is listening that kind of relates to Sean or my story of being a Irish fellow with dark hair and a beard who has a little bit of extra weight on you to give him a shout. I'll never get good at finishing these podcasts. Thanks very much, man. Thanks very much for your time. This has been a great crack, man.
Oh, it's been awesome, man. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We'll chat again very soon, I'm sure. To the rest of you, though, as always, hasta la fitness, baby.